Hello, everybody, and welcome to the msuwma podcast. This is Justin Jackson. Today's guest is Eric Waggoner. He is the managing director of Waggoner Financial, as well as a professor at Michigan State University. I had the pleasure of taking his course back in 2019 on insurance and risk management, and had the chance to experience his fun and unique teaching style. Eric is a CFA, CFP, and CLU, as well as a chartered financial consultant. He holds 2 bachelor's degrees from MSU, one in mathematics and one in astrophysics. And to top it all off, he has his master's in global finance from NYU Stern. Eric is an intelligent and interesting guy. I think you all will enjoy this episode. Professor Waggoner, we start off by sharing your story, your journey from college all the way to now as a managing partner at Waggoner Financial. I just kind of want to hear, big overview, chronological order type of story.
Yeah, well, first off, Justin, it's great to see you.
Yeah, great to see you.
So I went to school. I think everybody that gets into the business has, their own path. There wasn't, back when I went to college, there weren't financial planning majors, there weren't financial planning programs. And it was just something that if you found yourself in it, then you stumbled across it, you stumbled into it. Most people went to school for something else, and then they just kind of found their way into this field. So I am one of those people. I started off in math and astrophysics. Those are my majors when I went to college. I got bachelor's degrees in math and astrophysics, and I was a wrestler. So I was very far afield from financial planning, but I was wrestling, studying black hole physics, and DJing. That was my job, which was a great job in college.
How did you get into, one, were you always a wrestler? Were you always an athlete growing up?
Yeah.
Yep.
And wrestling, I'm not tall. So my grandma always said, if you can't be tall, be something.
Yeah. So how did you get into astrophysics? Sorry, I'm not a scientist. How'd you get into this?
Yeah, well, so I moved from Indiana to Michigan, and on these trips, when I moved, I didn't have any friends and I didn't know anybody. So I moved to Troy, Michigan, and I was within walking distance of the library. So what I would do to pass the time, especially in the summers, is I would walk down to the library and just, read books. And on one of my trips back to Indiana, which was about a 6-hour drive from Troy, I checked out a book so that I could pass the time on the drive, 6 hours there, 6 hours back. And I picked this book just because it had a little gold star on it. And it said it was book of the month. Literally, this gold star is why I chose this book. And it said book of the month. And what it was The History of Physics by Isaac Asimov.
Wow. And that just took off from there?
It was crazy because I was, kind of a goofball, and I was just wrestling, and I didn't really have any clear direction in life. And then I come back from this trip from Indiana, and I know a bunch of physics. And so I think I read half the book on the drive, and I think I read the other half when I got home. And then I started just checking out physics textbooks, and then I just got really into physics and math. And you can't be too great at physics if you don't know a little bit of math. So that is how I got into math and physics. Just got addicted to black holes and geometry of space-time and things like that.
Wow. Okay, so DJing. You're in college and you're into DJing?
Yeah. So then I had a wrestling buddy. I had a physics buddy. They both were trying to get me to join a fraternity. It turns out it was the same fraternity.
Okay.
So I said, well, I've got a couple different friends, and they're all trying to get me to rush the same fraternity. So I joined this fraternity, and 3 or 4 of the guys were DJs at this fraternity. And my big brother at the fraternity was also a DJ. And so, yeah, that's how I got into DJing. They just started taking me to their gigs, and I started playing. And I got to tell you that, I'd still be DJing if that was a viable career for someone like me. So. It was so much fun in college. The reason I stopped DJing is because I was teaching math. And when I went to graduate school for math, I would teach these big review sessions, and there would be 300 people in the review session. This would be at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then later on at 10 o'clock at night, I'd be DJing at a bar. And people started recognizing me.
Wow.
So
Okay. So
I said, one of these has to go.
and DJing was the one that went?
DJing is the one that went. I just felt it was difficult to be on the straight and narrow as a math professor, and then also just be all headphoned up and jamming at night, until
Yeah.
2 o'clock.
Okay, so you're a DJing wrestler who likes math and black holes. What happens after that?
So one of my friends' girlfriends, she got an internship at a finance firm, and one day she said, "Eric, you should do this with me over the summer." That appealed to me because all the other things, I wasn't really sure how I was going to make a career out of wrestling or DJing. And I wasn't too sure how I was going to make a career out of, black hole physics either. So I thought to myself, maybe it's not such a bad idea if I take this internship and I wear a tie, to work over the summer, just to see what a real job looks like.
Yeah. Okay. So how'd that go?
It went great. I did it all summer, and I learned a ton about, what the industry actually is and what it isn't, how you do how you reach out to people that you don't know, how you set meetings, how you walk them through the process of building trust and actually buying something from you, and that helps them and helps improve their life.
Okay. So what was your full-time career like? Like what was the first job you took? Kind of what was the first starting point out of college into the career?
So I got some bad advice. My second cousin in Indiana, he was a financial advisor, and I called him for some advice, and he told me to get out of the business and get back in when I was 30. He said no one would take you seriously until you're 30. I wanted to be coachable, so I took that advice. And I had also had some run-ins where I think at the time when I had the internship, I think I was 22 or 23, and I had a few people tell me, "Hey, I really like those ideas." Had a couple people implement some ideas, but they implemented them with other people. And at the time, my second cousin was telling me that no one would take me seriously when I was 23. I also was getting some feedback like that from people that I was soliciting. So it did resonate with me. It probably shouldn't have. Mm-hmm. But I actually took that advice, and I had really only taken the internship as something temporary anyway. So I went back to school, went back to graduate school, got my master's degree in math, taught math and physics for, a number of years while I was in graduate school, but it was always in the back of my mind to get back into the industry.
So how did you like teaching? Like, how was that whole process? Did you like what you're talking about? Did you just like the act of getting up and educating people?
I love teaching, mostly for the interaction with students, getting to build relationships with students. I don't know. There's just something symbiotic about teaching where you, I don't know. It's just a great feeling. I just love the relationships that you build when you're going to class and talking. When you're teaching, you're also talking about new ideas. They're not old, they're not stodgy. I mean, in academia, there's things that you get on the practical side of when you're working in finance, and there's things that you get on the academic side, and neither of those have all the best ideas cornered. And right. I have really found that it's so much fun to be in the middle where you're teaching and you're also practicing, and to take some of these great ideas that you see in academia and apply them to the practical world, but also know from the practical side of things which ideas need to be tweaked a little bit.
Okay. So how did you transition back into the industry? Did it just hit you one day? Were you getting a little burned out of teaching? Like what was kind of the thought process going on?
I was getting burned out of teaching, and I was also in a graduate program that was taking a long time. And I started to realize that a lot of my predecessors who went on to get their PhD, I endeavored to get my PhD in math. I started to see that a lot of people that went before me in the field, they were getting jobs that I didn't necessarily want. Okay. And I started to feel that I was following the academic crowd to a place I didn't really want to go. And it was making me a little restless. Mm-hmm. So I left academia. It was a very difficult decision. I left academia, did not finish my PhD. And instead, I started a financial firm working out of my bedroom.
Nice. So what were those
Yeah.
first couple years like of that? You just
Uh,
did it like, go gangbusters right out of the gates, like you've been waiting for it since you were 22, or did it take a while?
yeah. So what it was like is I was working from my bedroom, and I would call people and ask them to take a meeting, and then we would meet. I didn't have an office, so we would meet at coffee shops or their home or wherever, and I would share some ideas with them. And if they liked the ideas, we'd implement them. And if they didn't, then we would just part as friends. I had a patented sales technique, which I call begging on both knees. I wasn't afraid to beg. I wasn't afraid to cry if I needed to shed a tear. And some of those clients are still clients, 14 years later. It's really amazing, actually.
Wow. So let's talk about your current business. You own your own firm, you run your own firm. What's kind of going on now? Like what's the setup?
Yeah. So 14 years later, I I have a 7-person firm, and we do work for hundreds of clients. It's great. I get to spend my time every day sitting across from people or interacting with people or brainstorming and problem solving, which is similar to what I did in math with people. And you can see an immediate impact on their lives, their financial situation, building their balance sheet, their investment portfolios, or just their families. And it's a great way to spend your time. I feel like I'm just hanging out with all my friends, and we're talking about ways to improve their lives.
Nice. So how did you get back into teaching after starting to become a financial advisor? I mean, obviously I know you as Professor Wagner. I don't know you as a financial advisor first. I know you as an educator first. So how
Yeah.
did that happen?
So I'm not sure how I got in touch with Professor Schiestel
Yeah.
at Michigan State, but in the back of my mind, I had always wanted to go back to teaching. I had missed it. I always thought of myself as, I thought in my mind, someday I'll retire from the finance industry, and when I retire, it would be a great job to go back and teach calculus because I missed it.
Yeah.
Still miss teaching calc. I taught Calc 2 17 times it, and I loved it. And I had a mentor when I had started teaching who was this guy who was 80 years old, and he was still teaching. And I always thought to myself, he's 80 years old, he's still teaching, he just loved it. And I always thought, I want that to be me someday. I'll retire and I'll go back to teaching. But I did miss it. And so I forget how I started going back and forth with Professor Schiestel, but he was telling me that Michigan State was looking to add a risk management minor to the finance program, and they were looking to develop the curriculum at Michigan State so that it was certified for CFP certification, I guess.
Okay.
So when a student at Michigan State gets their finance degree, that satisfies the educational component of the CFP requirement, so that they can immediately sit and get a professional designation. That really appealed to me. So Professor Schiestel, I remember he called me one day. He said, "Do you know anyone who would really enjoy teaching and really enjoy being a part of this program and has a little bit of practical knowledge in finance? You know anyone like that?" Absolutely, I do. I would love to do it. And that's how I got back into it, and it's been great.
Wow. Nice. So how do you manage being a practitioner and a professor? Is it, you burning the candle at both ends, or are you able to manage your time pretty well? No.
I have a little Bruce Wayne Batman thing going on, you know?
Yeah.
So during the day, I'm suited and booted, and I work with clients pretty much from 8 to 5, and then I teach at night. I teach night classes at Michigan State.
Okay. So continuing education, let's talk about that for a second. You're kind of like the continuing education super champ, I think, out of all the advisors I've met so far. You get your CFA, CFP, CLU. You got a couple other ones too, right?
ChFC, AEP. Yeah, so I have 4 degrees and 5 designations. Yep.
Oh, wow, okay. So what's your kind of personal reasoning for continuing to educate yourself at that level, and maybe your philosophy on continuing education after undergraduate school?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. what I would tell you is I read with a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I like to read, and I like to read with some sort of an end in mind. When I read, I don't know if you had this experience, but when you read books, sometimes you'll be reading a book, and then you'll pick up a book and you'll start reading again, and you'll realize that you've already read that page.
Yeah.
And maybe you'll read 4 or 5 pages in, and you'll say, wow, I've actually already read all these pages, right?
Yeah.
So I have this thing that I do with books is when I'm reading, I write in them.
Okay.
And I try to write on every page, and I try to mark each page. And the thinking behind that is that I want to know which pages I've already read, and if I can't remember anything from that page, it probably wasn't worth rereading,
Yeah.
you know.
Okay.
So I try to read with a purpose, but how that applies to the degrees and the designations is it's the same. When you're in this industry, you've got to take continuing education classes. You've got to stay on the ball. You've got to keep your mind fresh and be, in the now when it comes to tax laws and revisions and people's circumstances, and certainly investments on the hourly, actually. So I just figured if I'm going to have to do all that work anyway, I might as well get a degree.
Nice,
If I'm going to do that
Yeah.
work anyway, I might as well get a designation. If I got to read this stuff, and if I've got to, I didn't like the idea of taking continuing education just to check the box and just watch my mind fade away. So I try to read things that will grow my mind. And when you do that, the designations just kind of come with it.
Okay. So I'm going to start asking you some quote unquote fun questions.
Sure.
What books do you think young advisors should read, or just people in general? What are some of your top favorite books that you've read?
In this industry?
This industry also, if you think that there could be a lesson learned from another industry, I'd love to hear that too.
Well, I devour books and I love them. So there's business books and there's books for fun. One of my favorite classic novels is Frankenstein. You got to pick that up, especially around Halloween. The Mary Shelley version, I would highly recommend. I think when I started off, I read books like Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
By Napoleon Hill. And those types of books were very helpful for me because you need a lot of, when you're starting off in this industry, you don't make a lot of money just starting off because, you have a business, and just like any other business, you're really struggling just to get clients and get revenue. So it helps to read a lot of books in the beginning, which are visionary and help you to, really begin with the end in mind. So 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, those types of books were really helpful to me starting off. Nowadays, I read just pretty much anything. Nowadays, I read, for a finance book, one of my favorite finance books is The Origin of Wealth. In fact, I give a lecture on The Origin of Wealth in class. But The Origin of Wealth by Eric Beinhocker was just a fantastic book for me. It really opened my eyes to the way that finance works, the way that the world works. And it started off with math and ended up with politics. So it was something I could really digest. Nowadays, I read a lot of business books, things like Building a Story Brand, or by Donald Miller, or The One-Page Marketing Plan by Alan Dibb. I spend a lot of time on business development and thinking about, or Traction by Gino Wickman.
Yeah, I read that book. That's a great book.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Gino's a native Michigander here. He's in Southfield.
Yeah, I read Rocket Fuel. It really explained to me what a visionary was, and it talked about all of the problems visionaries have. I'm like, I have all of those problems. Thank you, now I know what I am.
Gino's got solutions for those problems too.
He does, and he has solutions. So I'm working through some of them. Thank you, Gino. So business development, you talked about that. So let's maybe this isn't as fun. This might not be a fun topic, but what's your perspective on business development and financial planning? What are some of the problems you see with young advisors starting out, maybe not understanding how much of the job is a business development? What was kind of your experience as a young salesperson? I know you said you weren't scared to cry.
Yeah. Okay. So I think when you and I say business development, a lot of times we mean sales.
Right? Yeah. I mean sales when I say business development.
I would encourage people. So there's two routes into the business that I see. One of them is to work as a protege for a firm, for let's say an RIA, or for a big team at a wirehouse.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a little bit of master apprentice Jedi thing going on there.
Yeah.
That you got that.
Yep.
The team that's got a master, you're the apprentice, and when you get big enough to do it on your own, then maybe you kind of find a way to either take over part of their business or separate and go on your own. But that's one way into the business, is to work as a paraplanner under someone else. I think that is a good route into the business. Another, because you get to see their processes,
Right.
their sophisticated processes immediately, and that's helpful. The problem is that established teams already have clients that would work with teams, but might not necessarily work with you. So it might be difficult for you, if you were to go off on your own, to pull in clients of a similar caliber. Another way to get into the business is to hustle and just to start on your own. And that's what I did. Team up with an insurance company, or a shop like Edward Jones, as an example. Build and why that's important is you're just starting off on your own. You're doing what I did. You meet with people, you show them some ideas. The type of people that you're working with would be young professionals typically.
Yeah.
And they're going to have, you're setting up Roth IRAs, retail investment accounts, and doing a little bit of insurance work. And that's important because the insurance will pay you commissions in the beginning, and the investment works will pay you investment advisory fees long term. So it's a lot of hustling,
Yeah.
But the advice I would have is that you kind of own your own thing when you start off on your own. So if you build it on your own, if you're a self-made woman or a self-made man, then you always own your own thing. I think that people want to have that. The problem is that there's a lot of work that goes into it, and the type of work that goes into it is sales. So advisors, or aspiring advisors, when they get into the business, they drastically underestimate the role that salesmanship, selling needs to play in their financial advisory business. I think a lot of them think, hey, I'm smart, I've got some good stock ideas. Certainly I can just set up a table in the middle of a field, and people will come to my table and sign, and open up accounts. And it doesn't work for Coca-Cola like that. And it doesn't work for aspiring advisors like that. You've really got to reach out to people and fall in love with the concept of selling, and not think that selling is a bad thing. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah. So I was about to ask you about that. I mean, salesmanship is kind of one of the original skills of commerce, right? If you think about it, like I have this, you have this, we should trade these things. Like salesmanship is such a human thing, but like I think over time the philosophy has kind of got, or at least the perspective of sales from the public is turned into kind of a dirty thing,
Yeah. So, and I think that may even be more true in aspiring advisors' minds than it is true in their clients' minds.
Yeah.
The first thing that you want to retune in your brain is that sales is about helping people to get what they want, or to get something that they want. And selling is also a form of teaching. So in class, I try not to teach a lot about specific products. What are the ins and outs of this disability insurance policy? The reason I don't try to teach too much of that in class is because, if you get too far into the weeds, the students aren't buying that product right now. So it's too granular, and it's not going to help them. You want to be more concept focused. But at the point of sale, if someone goes to buy a Ford F-150, for instance, there's a lot of things I don't need to know about Ford F-150s if I don't own one. There's a lot of things I don't need to know if I do own one. But those things I might need to know right at the point of sale. Yeah. And so people that are selling are really teaching, and they're teaching you knowledge that you need to know in order to make a decision about buying a particular product right then. So I think of selling as a specific type of educating. There is a little bit of a motivation that goes into it. You can sell products that people want but don't need, and they're easier to sell, like jewelry.
Right.
People want those things. They're happy to spend the money. They like you. Then you can sell things that people need but don't want, like life insurance.
Life insurance, yeah. Absolutely.
The work is harder. People don't want to talk about it. If you think about it, though, think about all the things that you wish that think about all the things you didn't do yesterday that you wish you had done. Eat a salad, work out, save some money. Those are all the things I didn't do yesterday that I wish I had done. What happens is when you're selling products that people need but don't want, in the back of their mind, they have a to-do list. They know that they should be doing these things. They just are avoiding it. And if you can reach out to them and be the catalyst that gets them to take the action, to buy life insurance, let's say, or to update their will and their trust, if you can be the catalyst for that, they resist you at first, but once they take those actions, they have a deep sense of pride in themselves.
Yeah.
And they know that they wouldn't have done it without you. And so that really builds strong foundational relationships with people.
It's funny because I almost see more similarities with like personal trainers who are trying to sell their business and financial advisors than any other kind of profession. I don't know if you could understand where I'm getting at with that, but it's like, they're trying to help you get healthy, eat something better, man, exercise, move your body. I feel like it's a very similar thing where everybody kind of knows that they need this person, but I don't know if I want to work with, they make excuses is why I don't work with them. I don't know. Do you see any of that in common?
It's absolutely true. Most of financial planning, at least the really impactful part of financial planning, comes down to behavioral finance.
Yeah.
And convincing people to do things that they should have already done. That sometimes that's what we'll say to them. Hey, I'm not telling you to do anything that you shouldn't do. In fact, you knew a long time before I came along that you should have been saving some money.
Yeah.
Right? You knew.
Have you read any books on behavioral finance?
I don't know if I would call that. Well, nowadays, behavioral finance is a large component of even the CFA curriculum. So even professional designations like CFP and CFA, a large part of what you're learning is behavioral finance. So I would say yes, but not books on their own.
Okay. So another fun question.
Well, to dovetail on your book question, Game of Numbers by Nick Murray was.
Nick Murray. Yeah, I've got the Excellent Investment Advisor on my shelf right now.
He's got good behavioral finance ideas.
So what would be a class that you would teach for fun or a lecture you'd do for fun that you can't do in your regular day-to-day job? If you had the opportunity to teach any class, maybe it's one lecture, maybe it's a full semester's worth. What would it be if you could create it from scratch?
Well, I already tried to do this, and it's my poor man's class, but I really took a lot. I would teach a class on game theory.
Oh, okay.
How it caused humans, the mathematics of game theory, how it caused humans to evolve with certain characteristics. One of them is the concept of fairness and trust, and how those aspects of human nature generate wealth, and how they are really the underpinning of wealth. And I'm taking a lot of ideas from The Origin of Wealth by Eric Weinhocker, which, as I said earlier, had a lot of impact on me. But, human beings have this concept of morality, and it's something that we've developed from evolutionary design. And evolution has favored those ideas because they are mathematical winners. Okay, so that would be a class I would love to teach. Starting off with the prisoner's dilemma, talking a little bit about evolution, how it develops concepts like trust and fairness and morality in humans, and why those things, which seem so fluffy, actually have their roots in math and are actually very solid, and why they're so important. The winner of the next political election is going to be the guy or the gal who makes the best argument about what's fair and what's not.
So why is that?
Because humans have so there's a belief in the markets that people are rational and self-interested.
Right.
And almost all economic theory is based on this concept that people are rational and they're self-interested, and they can do calculations at the speed of light, and they can, another great book is Thinking Fast and Slow by Kahneman.
Yeah.
Great book. Got to read that book. That's phenomenal. But what Kahneman and his partner who passed away, what they were able to highlight is that humans are not rational. They're not rational and self-interested. They're not even close. And that's a lot of the reason why a lot of these economic theories just don't work, and where they break down, and why people will say that markets are efficient when I think it's obvious to most people that they're not.
Right.
I mean, how are markets efficient if in March the Dow is trading at 18, if the Dow is at 29.5, went down to 18,000, is backed up to 29.5, how are markets efficient,
So to what extent do you think it's important for financial advisors to understand, or at least have a philosophy on, market theory like this? Like, should they have some kind of philosophy? Is there something that you think is right that they should be subscribing to?
You got to know your field, and you got to know the fields that are close to it and around it.
Right.
I have gotten a lot of value from doing things like, so I just try to, what I would say is immerse yourself in it. I mean, most people that are good at wrestling, they're not good at many other things.
Right.
That's their life. They
Mhm.
eat, they train, they think about it all the time, and that's how you get really great at something. So with finance, I think it's good to immerse yourself in it. Read some academic books, read some books for lay people. I've got the Wall Street Journal sitting on my desk right now, and I'm watching CNBC, while I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just one of those things.
Okay.
With the markets, they're a lot like riding a bike. I can watch a YouTube video about riding a bike. I can read a book about riding a bike. I can know everything there is to know about bikes. But if you hand me a bike, I'm not going to be able to ride it.
Right.
You've got to get a feel for a lot of these things. And another example would be poker. You can teach me the rules of Texas Hold'em in 30 seconds. But if I sit down with a bunch of experienced poker players, I'm going to be out of money real fast. You got to have a feel for the game.
Yeah. Okay. So do you think finance and business are one of these things that you kind of just got to play the game for a little while before you start to really understand it? I mean, you can know it in theory, but do you think it's also one of those things that you need to get your hands dirty a little bit?
Yeah, I think you should open up a little investment account and invest a little bit. Our clients are always saying, hey, what if I had a Acorn account or a Robinhood account? What do you think about that? What if I had my own side account and competed with you?
Yeah.
I say I encourage that, because then our clients become smarter and they realize how hard it is.
Yeah.
It's not just something that, a lot of times clients will realize that a lot of their investments they got lucky or unlucky on, and there's just a little bit more that goes. There's a little bit more sophistication, maturity that goes to making money in the market. So what I would say to young advisors is to buy retail stocks,
Mhm.
trade some options. Don't fall in love with these things just because they're complicated.
Yeah.
I'm certainly not. I'll tell you, plain vanilla investments are probably the best, and plain vanilla anything is probably the best. But you certainly want to trade. But you might need to trade some options, or utilize leverage in your investment accounts. You might need to do some of those things in order to realize what works and what doesn't work for you.
So with a lot of young advisors, I mean, I feel like not everybody gets into personal finance. They're not all personal finance nerds. Then it really taking off in the career. A lot of times it's the marketing type of people. I mean, is it essential that they start playing around on their own a little bit early on? Do you think, like, get your own Robinhood account? Like, you can read your licensing exam manuals, but like, do a trade. Just try it out. Like, do you think that's an important thing?
I think it's like going to a restaurant. You want to you definitely want to just try new things.
Mhm.
Don't get stuck in old habits. Definitely try a lot of new things, because even if those ideas aren't for you, let's say you're not a bond investor,
Yeah.
like, it's not for you, you're going to have clients that it's the right solution for them, or they're going to ask you for your opinion on things. So, um, yeah, you just got to get out there and try a lot of different things. Don't fall in love with anything too quickly either.
Okay.
Don't fall in love with any idea. It's just like managing a portfolio. You don't want to run out of cash and then have a great idea. Right? So you
Yeah.
always don't fall in love with anything too quickly. Go out there and test a lot of things out. Find out what's right for you.
Okay. So last fun question.
Yeah.
What are some activities that you think are helpful outside of the day-to-day tasks of being a financial advisor? Meaning exercise, reading, journaling. Is there anything that you think's, essential for self-preservation while taking on a challenging hustle-based career? Is there anything that you've used to keep your formula right?
Well, I am a creature of habit and I have my routines, and that's been very helpful. Most people would complain, I think, about their jobs and say, my job is so mundane, it's the same every day. I want it to be different.
Mhm.
In our field, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
It's different every day, and there's a different challenge that you face every day. So what we really struggle with is trying to make every day the same.
Yeah.
You know? And having a good routine when it comes to working out, when it comes to eating, and really trying to embrace your rituals, I
Mm.
think is important in our business, because clients call you at all hours of the night. Clients call you when they have emergencies. The markets do crazy things, and it's just hard to stay into a routine. So I think, yeah, it's important to have a diet and exercise routine. I think it's good to read. I play a lot of chess.
I just got into chess. I was in chess club as a little kid, so I did it for a couple years, and then I watched Queen's Gambit on Netflix. This new Netflix show that's got chess. I'm like all about chess again. I've been on chess.com nonstop for like 2 weeks. I don't know. I'm obsessed with it. I'm sad that I kind of like left it for a while, but I love chess. Anyways,
Chess is great, right?
yeah, it's awesome.
So do you have a specific opening that you favor, or are you just not there yet?
I'm I'm not there yet. I don't know. I've studied a lot of openings. I can't figure out how to close out the game, how to attack the king. So I'll like totally stifle my opponent like in these beginner matches. He's like, what's happening? This guy knows openings. But then slowly but surely I'll lose all my pieces because I didn't have any strategy to make an attack. So I've got no offense yet. But
So on white, I'm typically a King's Indian attack kind of guy. I start off with King Pawn, and as black, I usually employ the Scandinavian defense, not because it's good, but because it often takes people off guard, and I want to get them out. If they're white and I'm black, I want to get them out of their game pretty quickly. So get them in something that's more familiar to me and less familiar to them. But chess really teaches you how important principles are. Control the center.
yeah, control
You
the center of the
know,
board.
you just because with chess, the game gets too complex too quickly, and it's the same is true with life. And chess teaches you that you can compete against a computer pretty darn well as long as you're really focused on principles, right? Also, what I've learned from chess is that this happened to me the other day. I lost 13 out of 14 games in a row. And sometimes I'll win that many, but what it helps me to think about, how it's helped in this business, is that you're not good or bad at chess. You are good when you're focused, and you're bad when you're not. And it's the same in our business. You're not good or bad at our business. You're good when you're focused, and you're bad when you're not.
Wow. Well, I'll ask you a couple more chess questions after, probably. But
Yeah.
in closing here, any advice you'd give to young financial advisors? This is gonna be about anything that you find particularly true to you, whatever. Anything in closing you'd like to give advice about to young financial advisors?
Yeah. Read a lot, network a lot, get on board with the concept of meeting a lot of people and helping to serve them, and never underestimate the power of trust in your relationships.
No. All right. Nice. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming on today.
Thanks, Justin. It's been great.
If you liked what you just heard, please like, comment, and share. This is Vincent Pacillo, producer of the MSU WMA podcast. MSUWMA, or Michigan State University Wealth Management Association, is a student organization part of the Eli Broad College of Business located in East Lansing, Michigan. Our mission is to inspire and educate the next generation of financial planners. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please check out our channel on all platforms such as Spotify and Apple Podcast. And check out our social media at MSUWMA and MSUWMA.com.